Anyway, Paul, thank you very much. Take it away.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, and I hope people can hear me on Zoom. Anyway, if they can't, they can't. So thanks very much again for everybody for coming. Fiona Bruce couldn't make it this morning, you'll be pleased to know. So I'm here instead and be more independent, I'm sure. So what we're going to do is take some questions. You can either ask specifically one of the panel or just generally a question. The areas that we're talking about are on well, we've got here, can we do more on South Tyneside to tackle climate change and energy costs? What are your ideas about improving our community? Do you feel you have enough say about what happens in the area? And how can improvements in the arts and culture create a stronger and happier South Tyneside? So ask a question, I'll go around, the panel can respond, then we can have a little chat if there's time amongst the audience, and we move on to the next question. So the person that asked the question might want to come back with comment on what's been said.
Is anyone game to ask a question then?
Right, so
anyone brave enough?
first question.
My question is, do we need a North East Mayor?
Okay, so do we need a mayor for the North East? So who wants to start on the panel with a response to that? Emma, do you have a point of view?
Can you hear me?
Right. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Right. So I don't know about our area because I thought that the offer we were getting was is that Cratterley? How about this one? If it's a crap politician, it's a politician. It doesn't matter whether they live next door to you or they're miles away from you. So I was always getting this time round. I think we've got a choice. We're being blackmailed by the government. This I still don't think there's a need for regional mayors. I think our country's quite small. I used to like the old model under the Labour government where you had a minister for each area. So we had a minister for the North East, and that's what the Regional Development Agency and put millions of pounds into our area. I think, and the other thing that I have a big worry about is through the whole devolution agenda, you're actually given more power as much as mayors would be or an MP would be. You've seen some of the scandals we've had here locally. I would be very dubious about giving more power and more money to people without strengthened governance and more checks and balances in place to make sure that they are spending our money well and making decisions in our interests properly. So I hope that answers your question. I know it was a bit of a ramble through, but I hope that was good enough to answer for you.
Okay, thanks very much. Anybody else on the panel got a point like to make about this issue?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. I think that's a very important question. I agree with Emma. I mean, it isn't sort of something we discussed with the South Tyneside Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign, but my own view was that this was a bad move because it would actually take democracy even further away from people than it is now. And that's the same thing happening in health with these changes to the integrated care boards. There's been less and less local control for our society. And I'm very pleased we're here because I think one of the main things that they set up was the idea that people should make decisions in their community. And I think when I spoke at the original founding conference, I said that, you know, we'd always campaigns, a campaign which was, you know, for the people of South Tyneside, and they would make, you know, that they come up with these wonderful schemes, and they're supposed to be wonderful. They're so wonderful, why they're imposing on people. And the last time around, this area rejected it, partly because a lot of people did oppose it. So, you know, so I think it's right.
Okay, thanks. So what we're hearing is sort of more bureaucratic. John.
Hello, I'm John Adams. As you can hear by the way I speak, I'm here to represent Climate Action Newcastle. I originally I spent 40 years in Croydon, and over that period, Croydon went completely bankrupt for a very large amount of money. I'm sure you know about this, and it's still not easy. So ratepayers, people who are paying for Croydon Council's failure. So I think Emma's point about the need for very strong.
Kelly, do you have any comeback about your question, what you've heard so far?
No, I think that's interesting, and I suppose whether or not you kind of think that the mayor, having a mayor is a good idea, like we haven't had a chance to sort of vote on it or anything, and I mean, people are quite apathetic as it is with sort of voting for local elections, etc. And you sort of think, well, how many people are necessarily going to vote for a mayor? But I mean, from my personal point of view, I kind of think it could potentially be good. Because if you have someone who's quite charismatic and can kind of be high profile and get, you know, funding and things like someone like Andy and whatever. But I mean, I can't help so I'm on the fence about it again.
Good.
For Jamie Driscoll in the May. Jamie Driscoll in the May. Having seen what he's done in North Tyneside, I think he could do with some of what he's done in there over here. My main worry is that he might not be selected to be head of this. And that's my worry, because he Tyneside and he's made such a good job of bringing money in, and that I think that that's the only problem I have with this deal, is if it's not in leading it. Thank you.
Yeah. What a comment here.
I am Julie. I was at the recent CAF meeting and they did an actual presentation about this, and they were pushing it and selling it really well, actually. But the one thing that I noted was that when people were protesting about not going to consultation in the fact of a referendum, was that they said basically you've got to accept it, otherwise you don't get involved in the money, which is over 30 years, it's 4.2 billion. And that's then broken down each year between the various areas. And the one thing that concerned me was the fact that the mayor and his cabinet are only made up of council leaders. So nobody's chosen in the fact that they would have the ability or the skills or competence to be able to put the 10 pence worth in. It's just going to be council leaders. And I'm not going to comment on the recent events in South Shields for South Tyneside for how that actually works. But I think people need to be aware that there isn't going to be a referendum. We're not going to get a choice. We're only going to get the money if the consultation and the councillors fully agree with it, and it's over 30 years. So it's not a long period, it's quite a long period and not great amounts if you split that down.
Thanks very much for that. There's one more comment here. It's almost like an offer that is impossible to refuse, although it kind of comes from the mafia.
I think the problem is that unless you're heavily political, like in your day-to-day life, then you don't know about it. Because although on a number of Facebook pages, it was only because I popped into the town hall that I even spotted it, and the consultation was like behind glass, so nobody can just walk in and pick one up anonymously. You've got to go and actually ask for it, and you have to be aware that you have to ask for it. And I don't think a lot of people are even aware of it, because as I say, like, I'm not heavily political. I do take an interest in politics and local politics, and on the Facebook pages for cast and Tyneside politics and various other things. But as I say, it was only because I popped in that I found out about it.
Okay, I think we maybe have covered, there's a lot more to talk about. A lot of issues here about democracy, accountability, political blackmail, all sorts of things, but maybe we should move on to another area. Maybe come back to this later. Anybody got a question, another question for the panel? Got a good start here. Somebody at the back, we'll come back to you shortly.
Good morning. Can I just ask Roger where we are at with hospice care in South Tyneside? It seems to have fell off the radar a bit.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. What has happened is they have set up end-of-life care in Haven Court, the hospital. But as you know, the whole campaign to retain the hospice at Primrose, which went on for the last couple of years, that didn't result in us winning a statement hospice service. And of course, so that's where we are. Feedback further from from the hospice itself, but it's like 6 beds that they have there for the use of end-of-life care. Like the last question, you in the audience might have more information than we do, but that
Mike is coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going back to the question before. It's linked with that, but from a different angle. Because I think what's clear from people's comments is that people feel not disempowered. They're not have the power to take part in the decisions, and that's why people don't vote, because they don't think that affects their ability to take to be part of decisions. And as Roger said, the hospital campaign is always set up so that, and I just wondered what the panel thought about how we can involve people in becoming the decision makers and actually becoming empowered, that you can move things forward and change things. Because I think the thing is, people don't feel we live in a real democracy because we're disempowered, and how we can get people involved in various things.
But I think because it's like we need to have a bit more like advertising and getting things out more a higher profile. I know we're doing really well
new members coming on board, and I think that, I don't know why that is, but I think a bigger profile out there might be the way. I don't know. It's very hard to get people involved, and I think people are in the mindset, why should we bother? Because nothing's going to change, and it is hard to get them to change their mind about certain things, and we're not doing that really, especially with the things that are happening at the hospital at the moment. But I think people have got to get out of the mindset where what's the point? Why should we bother? But if we don't bother, we're not going to change things. So even if you're in that set way, you've got to get on board with it and try and make a change, because further down the line, people will say, well, if I've done this, if I've done that, there's no point in having that years down the line. We've got to do something now to get changes done. And it's not going to change it if we just sit back and let other people do it. We need more people on board, and a higher profile, I think, might be the best way to try and get good people to come on board with it and join forces, try to do better things for us at Tyneside.
Before the meeting, I went round and talked to a number of you at tables asking what was your interest. And a common theme was the opposite of what had been said. What can we get involved with that will affect climate change? Would you like me to say something on what you can get directly involved with immediately that will affect climate change? Would that be useful? Okay, thank you. I belong to Climate Action Newcastle, and yesterday we were demonstrating in front of the Civic Centre in Newcastle on divesting. That's asking the Tyneside pension funds to get out of oil, coal and gas. Now, everybody sitting at this table, you have two things you can do, which are really easy to do and produce enormous results out of proportion to the individual. One is you can talk to your local council and say, we want you to divest, we want you to get out of oil, coal and gas. They are major polluters and causes of climate change. And there are, I have here Divest Time Wasting leaflets, which people can take away. It tells you how to do it. It's really easy. The second thing you can do, if I divert, just go aside for a minute, two policemen turned up and they said to us yesterday, if you have any trouble, tell us and we'll look after you. Rather a nice police line, I thought. And I was talking to them and I asked them, do you have a police pension? They said, of course we do. I said, what is the money invested in? So everybody sitting here will have the entitlement to a state pension and to a pension from your workforce. You pay 12% of your money into it every month, and the employer pays in money as well. You can ask your employer, where is my money invested? It's your money. It's not the government's, and it's not the employer's. And you'll be astounded at the reply. When you look, could I have a list of the top 10 companies where my money's going? The employer will give the money to a pension fund manager. They probably won't do it themselves. When people get the results back, they are absolutely shocked. Firearms, weapons, alcohol, tobacco, oil, coal and gas. And you can write back saying, I disagree strongly with this. I want you to change your policy. And if enough people do this, you can actually alter where they're investing their money. You can make them divest. We're not asking people, companies, investment funds, to throw away the money immediately overnight. 5 years, it's a long time, perhaps we haven't got 5 years, but 5 years to divest, which is what Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank did. They agreed, they were ambushed at their general meeting, and they agreed that over a 5-year period, they would come out of oil and gas. So a measured approach. It's not an extreme approach. So I would suggest write to your local council, ask them for investing, take one of these leaflets, and write to your company pension and ask to see a list of where your money's going. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma, with the question of participation. Do you want to be having a say, having a say. There are a lot of people here from decision making, access to power.
I mean, if you don't mind, if I can just make a few comments first on some of the things that have been said. I think people at the moment, some of you might know that I go out regularly knocking on doors and talking to constituents, and they'll say to me, it's pointless voting because nothing ever changes. And I'm like, well, you've had 13 years of the Tory government. So no, nothing has changed for 13 years and it won't. And, you know, people, we now have the worst decline in living standards on record. People's wages aren't going up, but the price of everything is, and our public services are crumbling. So no wonder people feel just disempowered because they think, well, what's the point? There's not going to be another general election potentially for another year. So people do feel ground down in that they're basically just trying to live and get by day. You know, we have the highest levels of child poverty now in the country in the northeast. People are struggling. They don't often have time to get involved and be politically engaged. And for those who do want to feel a deep sense of frustration, people are being held to account, and people coming to me and telling me what they want me to do. And it comes back to local councillors as well. And people need to hold those that they have elected to account and hold them to, because people power can change things. If you look at rights movements across the world, people power has changed things. Look what's happening in France right now. No, you have that power. You don't have to be an elected representative to do something about issues. You can hold those you elected to account, and you can use your own power that you have. We live in a democracy, and I see it, but I'm happy to have that debate with them. And I think that's what you need to look at, the quality of people that you're electing and putting in those positions of power. And then there's also things around, and I spoke about this before, you put into models that it's not completely led by a cabinet behind closed doors. It could be a model where every decision is taken to full council for full debate and full decision. Then you can see the people that you elected, how they are voting, and hold them to account better like that. So I think that there is things that can be done, but I think it's also really difficult in this economic climate for people to get out there and do that, because they're just basically struggling and trying to survive.
But it is also, if there was something worth fighting for, they would come out. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about town halls here, but as you know, the town hall in Bordeaux has just been burnt down. So I'm not saying that this is the way to go at all, but this is when people get angry. Roger, do you want to add in? Sorry, yes.
Can I just talk a little bit about partnerships and participation? I recently attended 2 or 3 meetings organised by the council about this very subject. On behalf of CAS, this was one of the groups that the CAS are now member of are called Cultural Partnership, which have recently been set up, probably 2 or 3 years, possibly been involved for about a year or so. But they're an interesting body. They're a coalition of the great and the good within the borough. So people from the Customs House, from the Word, from General Hall, etc., who get together and look at how better to work together in partnership. Now, where there are also other groups, Inspire, for example, who also are a coalition of community-based groups, again looking to work together. So I think there's some good work happening. The council seem to be opening the door a little to having more participation from these community groups. Whether that transpires into actual action in the long term remains to be seen, but they certainly seem to be heading in that particular direction. That's the vibe I get. I was at one further meeting, which was hosted by the High Street Task Force, which were an independent organisation brought in by the council to look at rejuvenation along the High Street and in Heaven and Jarrow and other places as well. There was many members of the council at that particular meeting, and the strong message came out of that it should the council that own the of rejuvenation and partnership. But if when it does get published, I'll certainly let council know, and I think everybody should have a look at that, and then hold the council to account if they accept the recommendations of that particular meeting. I'll just say one further thing. Anybody who runs a community group, we're actually next weekend of the Big River Makers Market and Castro's at that market. If any community group wants to have a presence at that, either by leaflet or otherwise, then you're more than welcome to get in touch with Drew. If you're publicity, and we'll be happy to put that on display. Just to publicise the market that we'll be performing as well. We also have the emergency services coming down with the fire engine and a police car. And hopefully the volunteer life brigade are coming down with their vehicle as well. So it should be a good day out. Pray for the workers, folks, please.
Okay. Did you have any inquiries? Do you want to come back on your question, or are you happy with what you've heard? Yeah. You want to say? Yeah. Sorry.
Hi. Obviously coming from in Scotland. We are obviously the all singing all dancing side of this. We are a cake in this company. Basically what we do is we look after vulnerable people who want to get back involved, and then if they want to learn how to do it. So we take on vulnerable people and teach stagecraft. We actually get gigs, and also whenever we have a stage concert, we have recording studio there and we do a lot of stuff. The point I'm saying this is I think some of the questions that you're asking are a little bit more important than what I should get involved in. So I'm just going to suggest that at the end of this, we're around. If you want to know more about us, then please.
Thanks very much. There's a question here.
Oh, hello. My name is Ashley, and I'm an artist, and I am involved with community groups at home workshops at the Star Fest. Shops. And also want to know is how to community artists like myself get involved the after and do some more. And apart from the expensive thing, I just want to know how can artists who are in projects, is there like a or can we set up like a list or a forum where artists can get involved, community work and the involvement of that kind of thing?
Okay, thanks for that. I mean, the Start Festival you referred to, Angela, was going to now, and you know, has helped to develop the community. Expand and great here on the panel. Got a view. Yeah. Well, no, somebody on the panel first. We'll come back to the audience. Anybody here? No? Have we got it? On it? No. Okay.
I have a point on a similar vein. I'm an artist as well. So I'm working at the moment on a project which is supported by the Word. And we have an exhibition coming up in July. But prior to that, it's a bit sorry, what's the word? Prior to that exhibition, the project is called Be the Sea, and the aim with the project is to look at we're also supported by Seascapes, which is a conglomerate organisation funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and it runs between the Tyne and the Tees. And we're looking at ways in which we can help engage local members of the community in their coast more actively, in their coastline, and think about their relationship to the coast, and through that make a publication which we can give back to members of the community that will help to like as a legacy book, so that further generations can get involved as well. And the output from the work that we're doing, I'm a visual and sound artist, I'm working with a composer. The work that we're doing, we want to be participative and community involved, and we will be recording and creating sounds that will be played in the word. And we'd very much like this to be about the local community and about how what people within the local community think about the climate and how humans are impacting the climate, particularly in this local area. So it's a bit of a plug, I'm afraid, but that's one way that local people can get involved, and we're actively looking for that. I've got some flyers and leaflets and a sign-up sheet as well. So if there's an interest,
All plugs are welcome, don't worry. All plugs are welcome. Can I just say there's a distinction between an artist and an artiste? An artist that performs and sings, dances, an artist. So it's basic things like candles. So regards the recording side of things, we may be able to help, but I think we'll just be candid. There is some people here who will go on these events. They may be able to help.
Yeah, I mean, Cast is very involved in this work, and so we'll be pleased to help publicise it and to bring people together as best way we can. So at the end of the meeting, ask you if you're not a member of Cast, please join up and you'll get on the mailing list, and you can take part. You can be on our planning group, etc., etc. So yeah, let's do that. Question back there.
Just one thing, what I'm listening to is about community. And I think it's very difficult at these times that we are actually closing down community centres, which are centres of the communities. Currently busy with a campaign for Jubilee. But if I'm not mistaken, this is to Tracy as well, a rise of people going to food banks. And I can see that connection of food banks being within that community. So maybe these should be kept open with this focus of the food bank and what other services you offer from a food bank as well, and those people that are coming in, and whether it could be expanded that way.
Well, we do lots of other services more than a food bank. We're always there, we're more than a food bank. We would love to do the cultural springs, but at the moment we haven't got the room to accommodate them. We do cooking lessons with the kids, and we do cooking lessons with families who aren't really good at cooking, and they tend to be more, let's go to McDonald's or KFC and things like that. So what we do is with another organisation called Food for Thought. I've worked with Jan for about 3 years now, and we learn the parents to cook, and we cook from scratch. So like we cook bread from scratch, and it's amazing how little time that it takes to make a loaf of bread. And probably it's quicker to make a loaf of bread than go to the shop and buy a loaf of bread. And we make like pasta, and we make it from scratch. And then what we're trying to do is then once they've made that, we'll give them the recipe and the ingredients at home, and they can make it for the family. We do sessions like that, and we try and do as much as we can, but unfortunately we don't always have the funding. Luckily, with the HAP activities, we're able to do this more often, and we take the kids on trips we do activities in the church. So we're trying to do more activities and get people involved to come and help with. But again, it's the funding and it's the accommodation. I mean, we would love to offer the warm spaces, but our building, we can't afford to put the heating on. The last time we got a bill, our electric bill, it was £5,500. So we can't possibly offer people a warm space because what's the point of coming hours? They're going to be colder coming hours and leaving and in their own house. So there's lots of things that we could do as a food bank, and that got lots of ideas going on in my head. We haven't got the money to do it, unfortunately, and until we have. I mean, our shopping bill at the moment is up to £1,000 a week, and that's taken away some of our things, our ideas that we want to do out in the community. Like we've been waiting to do an elderly club with activities and food, but we've had to keep that off because we haven't got the money to do it. But as soon as we have, we want to get the elderly back out again, because a lot of the elderly from COVID are still sitting in the houses waiting to come out, and we want to try and persuade them to come out, have a meal, have some activity, a bingo, but until I can get that funding, we can't do it. But we do want to do lots of things in the community, but unfortunately, we just haven't got the money to do it at the time. So we just do what we can at the moment.
Sorry, my question was kind of a little bit relating to that. I kind of got a sort of general question, which is, should food banks exist? I mean, I don't think they should, but having said that, I can see that. I mean, I don't think there should be a need for food banks, but sort of one positive side of the food banks that have just sort of come up through necessity is that, you know, kind of send the community. And like, if people then something like what you do, but you know, as a sort of place where the community are coming together, I mean, that's in some sense that's really positive, obviously. But and just on what you're saying about the funding, I just wonder, and you want to do more, say, maybe creative or cultural things. I wonder whether you could, in partnership with groups like Collins, and you know, because he can't do that, he can't access the half funding because of he doesn't really have the food covered. But if you've got the food covered and he's got the kind of creative side of things covered, and I wonder whether you could do something in partnership potentially. Just
when we get the half money, a lot of the half money that we get just on one food. We don't to accommodate the children, so we don't, for food parcels, that money's separate, just specifically for children and creating a space for them to go. So it's all activities, trips, as we do the cooking lessons. I think this around this time we're going to be and we're doing surfing lessons, but other activities, if we can get involved with them, we can look at that as activities, but the half activities don't cover food parcels. It's totally different. It's mainly just they'll cover food to buy the lunch when they're here with it all day. We make lunch for them, but we don't get money for food parcels out of the half money.
And just see a few things. So I've always thought that it should be absolute shame and that it's a failure of any government that even one food bank exists in the country. The fact that they've allowed them to become an embedded part of our welfare state should make them all feel utterly ashamed, and they don't. If you remember, the UN rapporteur on extreme hunger and poverty came and visited the UK, one of the richest countries in the world, and what he found was that the Tory government have deliberately created a situation where people are living in poverty through a cruel benefit system, through sanctions and through evil welfare reform that they presided over. That's why we are in this mess. I realised early on in Parliament that, you know, we're going to be stuck with the Tories for quite some time. They kept winning elections I've been there 10 years now. So I set up a national charity, and that national charity is a network of food banks long before was given money for it. So we were delivering it through local channels, now being spent on PR and comms instead of food for hungry children. So once again, once you let certain people anywhere near money, they ruin it. It doesn't go to the people it should do. When we were crowdfunding, when my national charity was getting that money, every single penny went on feeding hungry children in South Tyneside every single school holidays. And I've still got that charity running now. We're about to launch a mobile food bank and a mobile food bank, an advice centre that's going to go around the entire borough, mainly in Shields at first. We'll try and get funding extended to South Tyneside. So that's what I'm going to try and do next. And that comes back to Tracy's point about, we're seeing our community facilities shut down. So where are people going to go for help? Well, my food bus is going to take that help to them in their communities so they don't have to travel anymore. We should still have those community facilities though. I think what's happening in Cheetah is absolutely heartbreaking, but in absence of them, there will be something provided for by the charity that I help set up actually. So hope that's helpful information for everyone.
Thanks, Chair. And Tracy, thanks for the question. I think this is, just want to develop this a little bit more because this is very personal to the health hospital campaign. And I think it's a very good question because if you look at our history in this area, and you're all aware of those things. And I think this is the issue because it's an absolute disgrace what's happening. They're wrecking society, they're wrecking their responsibility. So all of us, in a way, whether it's working on the cultural front, whether it's working on health front, or working on, as Tracy's working, brilliant work on the food banks, it's an alternative which the people themselves are taking up. And I think that's the important point that we have to recognise. It's about trying to disempower those who are trying to actually and what they're doing to make them